In less than 3 months, Phoebe Plummer went from being an ordinary university student to an internationally known criminal. So why the sudden change? Well, here are 3 words for you. Just stop oil. The environmental activist group had gained notoriety for their disruptive stunts, including ruining the world's nuclear championship, vandalizing an airport terminal, and even defacing a beloved prehistoric structure. To no one's surprise, people were beginning to get upset. The group's actions were even negatively affecting some families.
I've lost my job interview because of these lot, yeah.
What was your job interview for?
For a skip driver.
Oh, I'm so
HGV
sorry.
driver, so I'm HGV.
So where does Phoebe Plummer fit into all this? You see, Phoebe had turned into somewhat of a spokesperson for the group and had essentially become the face of the movement. Here's what Phoebe had to say about the group's motives.
You might recognize me as one of the people who threw soup on Van Gogh sunflowers, and I did this in support of Just Stop Oil, demanding that the government immediately halts all new licensing for oil, gas, and coal, because apparently we're going back to the dark ages in our energy policies.
When confronted about Just Stop Oil's unorthodox methods, Phoebe made the argument that effective social movements have to be disruptive.
Wouldn't it be better to educate people and talk to them and get them to be the groundswell that changes the government rather than paint on shop windows or soup on paintings?
I mean, pick up a history book, Trisha. Successful movements of social change always cause disruption. I sit here today as living proof that civil resistance works. I'm queer and born female. The only reason I'm able to vote, able to go to university, hopefully someday I'll marry the woman I love, and that's because of people who have taken part in civil resistance before me.
For Phoebe, it had always been her against the world, even from the very beginning. Phoebe was a proud member of the LGBTQ community and used they, he, and she pronouns. When she was 18 years old, Phoebe read a UN report saying that climate change could result in millions of deaths per year. Following this, Phoebe decided to go vegan, stop flying on airplanes, and wear only secondhand clothing. In 2022, just 3 years later, Phoebe would meet a group of people that would change her life forever. Within just 1 week of joining the activist group, Phoebe had been arrested 3 separate times. In fact, Phoebe was even jailed quite a few times for stunts like blocking the M25 highway in London for 4 days straight. In spite of these numerous antics, Phoebe never spent more than a few weeks at a time behind bars. Of course, this would change down the road, but more on that later. Phoebe was beginning to realize that her actions carried real-life consequences. Though Phoebe insisted her goal was to prevent deaths, her actions were actually resulting in deaths.
Car crash actually linked to one of my circle of friends. She died because an ambulance couldn't get through because your protesters, Just Stop Oil, were blocking the road and the ambulance couldn't get through in time. She couldn't get the help she needed and she died. Earlier you said that you are a peaceful protester. My friend is dead. How do you answer that?
Phoebe claimed that the group had never received a complaint from emergency services, but the host, Kate, wasn't buying it.
And we have never had any complaints from either ambulances, fire brigade, or any other emergency services
The video footage exists and the lady can't complain now because she's dead.
To Kate, Phoebe's actions were merely performative and had no positive impact in the real world.
And if we stop oil, how much more expensive do you think fuel's going to be, Phoebe? Or is it that you're just spouting out words that you and your friend think look good? How is it related to stopping oil to throw soup over a painting in a gallery?
Would you rather your bills were £3,500 or £400?
I would rather that you and your friends stopped wreaking havoc in the city of London. I'd rather you stop throwing soup over paintings, stop putting orange paint on the windows of Harrods, stop sitting in roads so that my friend couldn't get the treatment that she needed. And I'd rather you went out, worked a bit, maybe you could do some litter picking on a beach, maybe you could do something that was practical and helpful. But I don't think being obtrusive and obstructive and lecturing ordinary people when you have no idea what it's like to try and work and make ends meet in the UK. You talk about millions of people, you talk about people who are in poverty, you have no idea what that's like because you live in the rarefied rarefied atmosphere of a university at some wokerati place, and you think what you're doing is changing the planet. I think what you're doing is pissing people off.
In addition to enraging the general public, Phoebe had also managed to alienate those closest to her. Phoebe admitted that upon hearing about her antics, she had lost countless friends and even had her own family disown her.
Hate online, I'd gotten quite a lot of personal hate, people that I knew that I thought were my friends who then decided that they hated me. And my dad is a climate denier, which makes it very hard to even start having the conversations about what I do. One of my brothers told me I wasn't his sister anymore and that he wanted nothing more to do with me and that he was quote unquote beyond disgusted and ashamed by me. And that's hard. I can't pretend that it's not.
Phoebe also explained her motivations behind her activism and also reflected on her time in prison.
The law isn't always ethical, always moral, and when you are looking straight at unjust laws, I think we have a moral responsibility to do something about that, and that's why I'm willing to risk prison time and arrest. It's like, this isn't a passion. This isn't a hobby. There's a lot of joy in the movement, but it's not fun going to prison and going out and getting arrested. I don't do this because of passion. I do this for survival.
Despite Phoebe's growing legal difficulties, Phoebe's stardom was also quickly growing. She was invited on countless television networks to discuss her ideas, including a program hosted by Jacob Rees-Mogg, the UK's former Secretary of State for Business and Energy. Phoebe had quite a lot to say on the matter.
Quite frankly, I'm not a scientist. What I'm doing is I'm looking at the world, and we're living the effects of the climate crisis today. Right now, people are dying. Children are starving. Families are fleeing their homes.
But energy...
And it's preventable. We have the solutions.
Cheap energy is one of the things that has hugely extended life expectancy by the ability to control temperatures, whether this is by air conditioning or by heating, the ability to store food more effectively, the ability to transport food, and indeed use fertilizers to grow more food, has all been essential in increasing life expectancy. Taking all that away would be disastrous for life expectancy.
She even labeled climate change a genocide.
You're making extreme claims, but you're suggesting by not using fossil fuels, we would not produce the food we need to feed the world population.
I'm suggesting that if we keep on heading down this genocidal path of mass destruction, then no, there won't be any foods in the supermarket. Then we will see vast swathes of the world uninhabitable. We will see mass displacement of people.
Comparing rising temperatures to tragedies like the Holocaust was certainly an interesting choice of words. But if we take Phoebe's word on this, she would also be contributing to said genocide. Sitting there with hair dye, jewelry, and mass-produced cloth, it's like she's a billboard for what oil gives us. Others also notice the group's hypocrisy. There is no benefit to destroying pieces of art and ancient architecture that have brought humanity together ever since their creations. Their own density blinds them from seeing the hypocrisy of their actions. Wasting food and halting the pathway of cars to stop air pollution, but making it worse, since some people might not shut off their cars when confronted by them, or try going longer ways around. Even the super glue they use is most likely created through the use of man-made chemicals and energy from electricity usually sourced from natural gases, coal, and oil. There is no benefit to what they do. In fact, there are more cons to their actions than pros. Just absolute blindness to a cause they are too dumb to properly understand anymore. You might be wondering, what does a random Redditor who couldn't even manage a single upvote really know on the matter? Well, as it turns out, quite a lot.
So here we are in the heart of the beautiful Warwickshire countryside, and yet if I look through this hedge just here, there's rubbish dumped everywhere. You can see we've got sleeping bags, plastic bags full of rubbish, liners, more plastic bottles, plastic chairs, more plastic chairs. Absolute mess. And all this crap has been left here by the Just Stop Oil campaigners. So what I want to know from somebody senior at Just Stop Oil, how is this acceptable? People dumping crap over our British countryside, polluting it, destroying the countryside and putting our wildlife at risk with rubbish. How can you justify this, and how can you tell me this is acceptable?
Unfortunately, Just Stop Oil's sins did not stop there, as the worst had yet to come. On October 14th, 2022, Phoebe and her friend Anna entered the National Gallery of London, home to paintings by Leonardo da Vinci, Claude Monet, and most notably, Vincent van Gogh. Here's what happened next.
Security!
The two women attempted to destroy Van Gogh's Sunflowers, which is speculated to be worth several $100 million. Luckily, the painting was mounted behind a glass frame and remained undamaged. Phoebe and Anna then glued their hands to the wall, and Phoebe delivered her now infamous speech.
What is worth more, art or life? Is it worth more than food? Worth more than justice? Are you more concerned about the protection of a painting or the protection of our planet and people? The cost of living crisis is part of the cost of oil crisis. Fuel is unaffordable to millions of cold, hungry families. They can't even afford to heat a tin of soup.
Following the incident, Phoebe and Anna were arrested and jailed, but were released on bail. However, this will not be the last time that Phoebe found herself behind bars. In September of 2024, Phoebe Plummer was sentenced to serve 2 years and 3 months in prison, 2 years for her painting fiasco, and 3 months for her other protests. Lover or hater, Phoebe has definitely made her mark on the world. Upon receiving news of Phoebe's sentence, Just Stop Oil decided to vandalize the same sunflower paintings again, despite knowing that Phoebe had just been jailed for the exact same crime. Given that Phoebe will be locked up until 2027, we probably won't hear much from her for a while. I'll see you all in 3 years for an update video.